Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Knights of the Pageless Library. This is an audiobook discussion podcast. I am Ryan Knight, and I will be your host for this episode. And on today's episode, I'm going to be taking a look at Accidental Astronaut, written by Chaney and Rick Partlow, narrated by Scott Aiello. Before I dive into the full review, I just want to say that I did a collaboration on this book a few weeks ago over on Burn Enough's YouTube channel. Me, as well as a few other reviewers, were kindly invited onto Burn Enough's show in order to review this book. So please do go check that out. It's really short, 5 minutes of your time. For the rest of you who are going to stay here and listen to my review, I greatly appreciate your time. I can never say that enough, and I'm sure you're getting tired of me saying it, so too bad, because I do really appreciate you being here and spending your very, very valuable time with me. If you would like to get in on the conversation, please feel free to email me. kotpl.pod@gmail.com is still by far the easiest way to do that. All right, so I listened to Accidental Astronaut through Audible. As is usual for me, it's just the easiest place for me to get my books. This book was released recently. As of me recording this, it was released back in December of 2025. And what else have these authors done? Well, I have definitely reviewed some of Rick Partlow's work before. I've reviewed Star Bounty, as well as World War Mars Book 1. So while I cannot say that I am intimately familiar with his work, I am familiar with his work. I think this book is his bread and butter. This is an adventure, military, sci-fi, shoot 'em up. Well, there's not a ton of that in this one, but it's got some of that in here. It's a space opera, which I recently even figured out was a term used in this genre. As for J.N. Chaney, I am not familiar at all with his work, but with a quick glance through his over 300 titles available on Audible, it's obvious that this is also his bread and butter. He falls right into that space opera, military sci-fi genre. And what about Scott Aiello as the narrator? I think he does good in this one, I really do. I'm not a massive fan of this genre of book, but I thought his performance kept me engaged well enough. The book's runtime is rather short, at 9 hours and 19 minutes, and I'll discuss that a little bit more as I go on with the review here, but I think Scott's performance throughout is pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of the snarky tone of the main character, even though that's very, very typical in these types of stories. I just don't know that I love it, but I do think that Scott's performance is good throughout. I think all of his characters are decent. I think his accents are good and they are consistent throughout. Maybe if they're a little overdone, at least they're consistent, so I gotta give him props for that. Okay, so a couple of my big questions to answer. Is this one easy to follow? Yes, it's extremely easy to follow. The story is pretty straightforward. It's rather fast-paced, but we don't really jump perspectives at all here. We pretty much stick with our main cast of characters from start to finish, which makes it pretty easy to put down and pick up and not necessarily lose track of what's going on. And I have to say that I do appreciate that. Sometimes it's fun to just listen to a book that, and I'm not even trying to be like offensive here towards the authors, but something that's not super deep, if that makes sense. There are a lot of concepts at play here that could have made this extremely hard to follow. And honestly, parts of it I'm a little disappointed that it didn't go deeper into some of these subjects, but I do think that that just kind of comes along with the territory that these books kind of fall under. If these authors need to write something to survive, like it's their job, they need to get the work done. They don't all have the luxury of somebody like George R.R. Martin, who can just sit around and not produce books because he already has plenty of money to where he doesn't need to write anymore. So I do understand compressing some of these stories down in order for, the sake of time and the sake of keeping the story flowing. This is already set up to be a series as well, so it's possible that the rest of the series is going to expand on some of these story beats that I really wish they had dove into a lot more deeply. Is this one easy listening? Yes. Again, I think that the narrator performance is good. I don't think there was anything in this that bothered me necessarily, so I'm definitely going to give this one my easy listening thoughts. So what's my overall recommendation on this one? I'm going to do something a little bit different here, at least different for me. I'm going to try to follow some advice of another booktuber that I saw that basically says people don't come to these reviews for me to reiterate the story to you. So I'm probably not going to even do a spoiler wall at all here. So I'm going to give you my review. I'm going to hit a couple high points of this book that I like, and then I'm going to let you be the judge of what the final product of this book is. Please feel free to come back and tell me what you thought about it if you listen to it. My overall recommendation on this one then is that if you're a fan of space opera, military sci-fi, these kind of fast-paced, shorter books that are easy to get a hold of, easy to listen to, easy to finish, there's not really a ton of depth to these books. And again, I'm not trying to say that to be offensive. I'm saying that these are pretty easy to pick up, listen to, put down, move on to the next one. Whether that's the next one in the series or you jump to another series, they all kind of follow that very fast-paced writing style. So if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, this one's pretty good. As far as military sci-fi books go, I actually enjoyed this because it's not huge overarching battles that we're seeing here. This is actually pretty small. There's a lot of intimate kind of combat stuff going on here, a lot of one-on-one fights, a lot of small-scale skirmishes between our main characters, and a lot of different stuff. Aliens, lion men, androids, dinosaurs. So, I mean, that stuff's pretty cool, and I actually really liked that. I can get behind the larger books too, but I said this in my World War Mars review that I actually didn't like that book as much because of how many characters there were. Now, the author actually kind of commented on that, saying that's pretty standard for some of these books. And again, I'm not intimately familiar with this style of book, so to me, I like having a smaller cast of characters that we get to know for longer versus tons of characters that we only get to spend a few minutes with each, every so often, every so many chapters. So that's my overall recommendation on this one. Again, there are some awesome concepts at play here. This is going to be a bit spoilery, so if you want zero spoilers, I guess this will be my spoiler wall moment. So if you don't want the book spoiled for you at all, please pause the podcast now, go check it out, and then come back here and just listen to my last few minutes on this topic. The idea that there's this rogue planet out there in the universe that's both able to be controlled and is brought around the planet kind of on this 10,000 year cycle and is brought near Earth orbit. And it is part of the reason that it seems like our civilization resets every so often. That got its hooks into me immediately. I was so set and I was like, yes, please tell me more about this. For me, the overall way that it actually plays out in this book is a tad disappointing. There's a lot of really neat things that transpire from that some of this life on this kind of roaming planet evolved from things that were brought there from Earth. And some of those things, like these lion men I talked about, that's pretty cool. I really like stuff like that. But I think I was a little bit let down with, there's a few things here. I think the concept of this roving planet that shows up every 10,000 years could have been the setup for an epic type of story, a 40-hour book with 4 books in the series. Just because that concept alone to me sounds massive, huge. And I just think in this tight story span, it had to be condensed down so much that I was really left wanting more. I like the idea that this other planet is ran basically by a immortal human who essentially he likes to come around and just mess with Earth every so often because he wants to basically keep it from being able to rise up against him, essentially, is kind of the way I understand it. And the idea that this cycle happened to be the one that the humans caught and was able to go on board the other planet, I guess, if you will, and the planet was going to crash into Earth this time, and I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a few months since I listened to this, but if it was because of Jack Schaefer and the others with him, if it was because of their intervention that the planet was now set on a collision course, or if that was just the goal this time. I don't really fully remember. And I liked the concept too that Jack Schaefer is this accidental astronaut, the whole namesake of the book. It's pretty neat that they were trying to capture the guy he was with, and they looked similar enough, and he's ex-military, and the guy he was with was ex-military, and the doctor who was supposed to capture him just kind of got confused, so he like shot both of them with these sleeping darts, and then he just happened to grab Jack Schaefer and not the recently retired Navy SEAL that he was supposed to grab. So I did like that. I do like the idea of this character being thrust into this story by accident. I think that's great. I think I liked the concept of this rogue planet more than everything else that happened on it, unfortunately. I thought the Lion Men being able to talk to our human characters with these little worms that they put in their ear, that's great too. I love that. So cool. So again, there's a lot to like here. I do think this one was very, very light as well on the military and gunplay aspects. So it wasn't so much like, oh, and then he pulls out this gun and they rattle off the name and number of the gun and it's this caliber and, you know, it shoots rounds at this many feet per second type of stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that. I know there's a lot of people out there who are. So I guess just be aware too that if you are a huge fan of that, there is not necessarily a ton of that in this book. So for me, I liked that, but for you, you know, your mileage may vary if that's what you're coming to these military sci-fi books for. Overall, I'm glad I listened to this book. I'm not going to say like I was, you know, disappointed in spending 10 hours with this book. So take that for what you will. Please let me know what you guys think. If you like this little bit shorter form, I would like to do better in 2026. I'm sure I've said this for every single year I've done this podcast, which is probably like 6 or 7 years now at this point, but I would like to do a lot better. And I think doing a little bit more short form like this and not going into details helps me out do that. So if you like this, please let me know. Please leave a comment if you're on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, you know, like everybody says, really does help the channel. And that's kind of one of my goals in the pushing of this. So if you guys can help me out, I really appreciate it. And if you can't, I also understand. You know, I just appreciate your time, appreciate you being here with me. With that, I will go ahead and cut it here. Let me know what you guys thought of Accidental Astronaut, and I will catch you in the next one.